We're here because of a river, and not just any river. She spans a continent, and with her tributaries forms one of the great river basins of the world. New Orleans was founded where it is because of that great river, and in time she became a magnet, attracting to her commerce and people, trade, industry, for working and for living. Around the Queen City of the Mississippi grew other smaller communities, each with its own unique blend of people, each with its own reason for being, each with its own history. In time, the legislature would call her Jefferson Parish, but she would always think of herself as the Free State of Jefferson, a community as storied, as lively, and as interesting as her more famous sister, New Orleans. A community is not formed by political considerations, not by lines drawn on a map. It is rather the mixing and mingling of people that in time produces a community, the daily living together that changes a place into a home. Welcome to Jefferson Genesis, the story of our community.
Nope, you may not get down.
No, you stay by Aunt Pam. Where's Michael? They're floating in the water?
We have no idea.
We get water now occasionally.
And speaking of water, maybe one of you can verify this, but Mr. Lee, who is not proven to be always trustworthy, claims to have won the Pierrot race in 1938.
No, I was in
Can
it.
either one of you
He didn't.
tell me about the Pierrot race?
No, I was in it in
Mr. H.N.
1938.
won that.
No, H.N. never did win one.
Maturin, what was his name? Maturin.
Maturin.
Tell him about the payroll races, Leona. We'll let you do that.
Yeah.
Oh.
But
you can help me with that.
Maturin
we can both
won the
help you.
first one they
First
ever
race,
had.
yes.
Ended
When was
over
the first one?
In 1934, 33 or
Just
34.
before.
It was put on. It was sponsored by the Barataria Women's Club, and they had the first one, and it ended right there.
They're the ones that started it.
Yeah. And that was Miss Reynolds and Miss Thorne and all.
Okay, Leona, tell him.
Yeah.
I think she wants Leona to tell this story.
Oh, my. Well, the Pierrot.
And we better, because I'm afraid of her. She's tough. Tell me about the Pierrot
Okay,
race.
the Pierrot race, it was the first Pierrot race we ever had. And from that on, we had one every year until the war. And then during the war, we never had any. Then it started again.
Tell them
And,
who took it, who started.
The, oh, if I can remember the name now. It was Mr. Hugh Wickerson. You remember?
Hugh and Urban Wilkerson.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were.
They were the one that was ahead of it then. It used to be at my house. They used to start. One year they'd start at my house, and then one year they start from the tavern coming this way, and then ended up at my house.
Well, tell them
In
how they got
Fleming's
how you Wilkinson and them got into it. It got too big for these ladies that had started.
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Oh.
They had just about maybe 6 or 7 ladies with this little ladies club, and they were little old ladies that started it.
Not little. My mama was tall.
And, but it just got too big for them. So then they just made a big thing out of it.
And it really got very big because Fleming's Park, they used to use
Oh, there's
park
thousands of people
for
lining
the
up.
people to come in, you know. And we had a crowd, a very large crowd.
But when it started off, it was just for like local
Yes,
people.
for local people, and it got to nationwide. And Mr. Blaze in New Orleans, Mr. Hugh Wilkerson, and a lot of the other business people, you know.
Do you have a lot of
Got
those people
involved.
coming down here to hunt and fish? and
Well, they
all?
belonged to the Lafitte Yacht Club.
The Lafitte Yacht
The
Club?
Lafitte Yacht Club.
Well,
And
the Lafitte Yacht Club took it over. at the end, wasn't it?
No, but when you Wilkes and them had it, they were the Lafitte Yacht
Yeah,
Club.
Right.
But,
Then later was when
I can remember when that started.
Richard Fournette
Oh, yeah.
and different ones. The men, those men got. I don't know whether they outlived their time or what, but then some of the locals was joined the club and all, and they kept it going until a couple of years ago, and it just went under.
they used to have it right
We
here.
had it was
Yeah,
quite a
but that's
quite
when
a
they
big
messed
thing.
up, because this is no place to have a race up here.
Did you get a lot of people from the city coming out
No.
and hiring guides to take them hunting and fishing and all like that?
They had clubs that they, like a Little Lake Club and different ones that they had an old club at Lafitte, and that membership they leased land and all to hunt and all, and a lot of the local people guided, and then most of the time these people had friends from New Orleans that came out and they took them hunting and all. They had camps.
But
out
it was
there.
never really like an organized tourist resort
No.
kind of thing.
Oh no, it was just you knew somebody and you'd go out to their camp and go hunting it.
Lafitte's always just been kind of family, hasn't it?
It is very, very a community where everybody was either. In fact, very few people, like in an area this size where I live. I guess I was the only one who wasn't related to all of them, because everybody else, yeah.
You came from Mississippi.
Yeah, you sneaked
But
in from
now-
Mississippi.
Yeah. But now there's a lot of transit
Oh, yeah.
down here. People we
But-
don't even know anymore.
But like the Perrins and the Adamses and
They
all,
just
they
like
were
the
all
right
related.
near where I live. There's five families from New Orleans that have retired and moved and built their home down there, sold their homes in New Orleans, and just live down here.
Flatland
So that's all
Foreigners.
over the.
Flatland
land.
foreigners.
Yeah, I see a name. I say, who in the world's that? And I don't know who they are.
At one
Just
time, I
transits
knew,
all over.
I could truthfully say I knew everybody from Marrero to the end of Lafitte. Even when I was working for Metropolitan, knew everybody. I don't know half of them.
How long do you have to live here to be really part of Lafitte?
Sometimes they'll accept you, and then sometimes they don't. I'm not too sure. I'm still not accepted by
Well,
all
if you're
of
a
them.
mixer,
Uh-huh.
but if you're a loner, well,
You've got to be as friendly and outgoing as the
That's right,
people in
because
Lafitte.
People,
a lot of
people
them
were
are.
clannish,
That's
and they
right.
stuck together, and you had to prove that you were on the up and up before they'd accept you. But they're all great people. They'd do anything for you. You see, when my father died, and I was 6 years old, didn't have any welfare, food stamps, Social Security, anything, and no jobs during the Depression days and all. If it wouldn't have been for the people being such great people and helping, you know, they'd come in from trawling and send a dishpan full of shrimp and fish, and in the wintertime it was ducks and rabbits. And we'd butcher a hog, we'd divide our meat with them, and raise vegetables, and it just was more a barter system.
It's
But
not,
it wasn't a barter system there that you go somewhere and I'll trade you this for that. When they had something, they gave it to you, and when you had something, you gave it to them.
it's not quite like that anymore.
No.
Well, I
We're
think that
more
used to be true of
city-fied.
people generally
Yeah.
a while ago,
In
and it's
countries.
not like that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, when I was a young girl, I can remember our doctor in LaRose. People couldn't afford to pay him, and I can remember they'd give him a sack of potato, onions, chickens, or when they'd kill a pig, they'd send it over, and that's how he got paid.
Now,
Yeah.
I wasn't raised like that.
Well, that's
I
the
was
way I-
raised.
Yeah, you in California.
Right.
that's in California.
I was
George,
raised in the big city. I didn't know-
California's not part of the
No.
United States.
in 19...
I didn't even know what a city, but I didn't know what a country was really until I was 17 when I came here. Like, they killed me.
In 1935, when we got our electricity, Joe Harvey was
The electrician.
an electrician, inspector, and electrician. And he came up and wired that 3-room house we lived in. Took him about 30 minutes, charged us $5 and 2 chickens. I swear to goodness, that's the truth.
Did electricity change life down here a lot?
Oh yeah,
How?
man. We had ice water, and we made ice cream. We could keep food overnight a week or two if we wanted to. We had a washing machine. Man, that was high on the hog.
What about automobiles? When did automobiles get down here?
Very few of the people had automobiles back in those days. Some like them, or the row houses, the Fishers.
The Fishers, yeah.
Yeah, very few. We didn't even have a road here. And I think the first car after they built the road was by Mr. Tony Coppell had it, because he's pretty influential, had a big shipyard and built boats and all. Well, our first car was a Model T Ford, and I think we didn't get that till about 1927.
I think I was with an Auburn.
Yours was an Auburn.
What was yours?
Auburn.
An Auburn. That was a big car.
Yeah, I remember the name. I don't think I've ever
Auburn
seen
was
one.
a big car. But we didn't, if one person had a car, like Ms. Leona said, they did all the hospital runs and the doctor runs for people, you know. And
in the time that you've lived down here, we've got like 120 years of living. Have you ever met the Rougarou?
Oh,
I've heard of the
Rougarou.
Yeah, I've heard of the Rougarou.
You
I'm not
never heard of
exactly sure who the Rougarou is, but they told me when I was coming down here that I didn't want to meet him.
Well,
I
Rougarou is
never
like,
heard of it.
Of the
Yeah.
Rougarou? Oh,
And I've been,
Grace.
you see, a Rougarou is like a ghost.
oh, well,
It's like a
that's Caesar's.
ghost that some people see. Superstitious people
Yeah.
believed in Rougarous.
We had a lot of that in La Rose.
Yeah.
We'd walk on the highway to school, and my mom would say, "Don't y'all stop anywhere. Keep going. Go to school." And my brothers would start teasing me. Look out, look, Leon, the Rougarou's coming out. Well, that was the Rougarou, Grace.
It was like
never
it was
heard it
like a
called
ghost.
that.
It was
Yeah.
more or less a superstition. You see, back in the days of Prohibition, we were talking about, and they hijacked the rum runners around Guayaquil, which is now the Lafitte National Park. There's a lot of people that wouldn't go through there at night, scared. They claim people were killed there and they'd see ghosts, you know.
That's why they wouldn't go up to the cemetery, the Fleming Cemetery,
Yeah.
because Dominic Yu was up there.
Yeah.
John Lafitte's old
Dominic Yu.
lieutenant.
Yeah. His ghost walks the cemetery up there.
That's what they
Still?
claim. I never did see it myself. I used to go pitch wood there at night because nobody would bother you. Nobody else would come to the cemetery.
Was this before or after you got married?
Oh, now that's a silly question. Was my wife sitting right there?
Well, you've been getting me in trouble. I thought I'd take a chance to get you in trouble.
No, that was before.
With your wife?
No,
Oh!
before I knew her.
I got you in trouble again
Well,
anyhow.
what I did before I started dating her was, you know, that was another history.
That's right. She had that strict father. You
Yeah,
told
that
me
was
about
another
that.
history.
She was
book
the
there.
lucky girl, though.
Yes, she was. She found me.
Oh, my goodness. What about courting? You know, you said that there weren't many dances and all. How
Oh,
did boys
they
and
had
girls
plenty
get
of
together?
dances down
Oh,
They
just
did- no,
not
they
in
did.
Bayou Lafourche.
No.
but, okay.
No, you had dance
was
halls
here.
where everybody would go on
I
that.
think that's where
On the weekend.
how I got in with, because I was just that age where I went to dances.
But the
They
old
had
ladies took the
dances,
girls to
real
the
dances.
dance
We
and
had dance hall
chaperone.
in Lafourche, too,
Chaperone?
but we
Yeah.
weren't allowed, young people to
The
go.
girls went to
We'd
the
walk-
dances with their parents and they went home with their parents.
Has there been an occasional game of bourrée played around here, too?
Oh, he's talking to the right one.
Bourrée and what's the
I
other
love
one?
it, huh?
Bourrée and Pedro. That's strictly.
I don't play
strictly-
bourrée.
Well,
but I do
Pedro
play
is not
Pedro.
it's not a what you call a gambling game. It's you play for points and you just play partners and then you play for the games.
Yeah, but you can play for money, too.
Oh, you can if you want,
If
but
you're
it's
a
not
gambler.
necessarily a
I'm
gambling
not.
game.
No.
But bourrée is, and poker.
I remember
But we
when,
play bourrée.
I
we love
remember
it.
one day I asked Tommy, your son, he and Father Lorio and all of them were playing. I says, Tommy, so that must strictly be a local game. Oh, no. He
Bourrée?
says, they play that game as far away as Morera.
You talk about bourrée?
I don't know remember whether it was Bourrée or
They
Pedro.
play bourrée all over.
Oh, man, he
It
said
must
they
have been
play.
Pedro because
Yeah.
Tommy is not a gambler.
He used to play with brother and Tommy
Yeah.
and Father Lorio.
My
and
husband
all
used
of
to
them.
love to play Pedro.
Is that what he and Mr. Fleming
And Dr. Trosker?
Dr. Trosker
Yes.
and all them? And Father Daigle belonged
Yeah.
to them? They wanted me to play with them, but I'm the kind of guy, I don't play a game if I got to remember what card has been played and all of that, you
He
know.
does a good thing.
And
Dr.
when I
Troxler was
saw
good.
how serious Dr. Troxler took his game, if I'd have made a stupid play, we'd have lost our friendship. He takes it serious.
Douglas Fleming, her brother-in-law's brother, he used to play with my husband. And at one time, the deuce is a point, you know. And if you bid 14, and if you don't have the deuce, you go back 20 for 14. And every game, he claimed the deuce. So one day, Dr. Troxler said, when you get that deuce, you put it right here, and I want to see it.
Oh, they were serious.
Oh, they played
Dr. Troxler let you die on a night when the card game was on. I remember one night one of my children was sick, and I went down there at his house, and his wife told me, he said, Mr. Fleming, that's card night. I had to go back there and pull in the yard, and I went in and talked to him during his card game. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was another person I got to watch out for, Dr. Troxler. You get building up all these enemies for me down
No,
there.
doctor.
No,
He's
Dr.
got
was
it.
a person.
You could go to him, have your visit, your medicine and everything, for $3. And that's when they were charging 10 in town just
But
for the
he's
visit.
quite a doctor.
Oh, he was great.
Before we get to the pictures, you brought out the moss, which
Yeah.
I want to talk about before we get started on anything else. That was the big industry.
Oh, absolutely. Until during the war, when they perfected all of the synthetic products, because all of your furniture, automobile cushions, mattresses, pillows was made from gin.
All over the country.
Mm-hmm. And then when they came out with the synthetic products, it knocked this business out.
But all the furniture used to be stuffed with the moss. I
Yeah.
remember when I was a child.
There's one
The
moss,
automobiles too.
there's one moss gin still in the state at Lafitte, Louisiana,
That
and the only thing keeps it in business is the antique people that are rebuilding and refurbishing the antique furniture. They have to have the moss instead of the synthetic products to keep it
Now,
authentic.
moss doesn't look like that on a tree.
No, that's the
That's
moss.
the moss, the green
It's
moss.
a live plant when it's on the tree. After it's cured and all of the husk rottens off and it's ginned, this is what it looks like.
How much you get for moss?
Back then, about 1.50 cents a pound, and it went 1 3/4 cents. And by the time the war started, I think it was 2 cents or above. I'm not sure. Because see, at that time, I was in the service and all. But
That was pretty good money for those days.
oh yeah, 'cause if you made
Oh,
$1
they made
a
money.
day, $2 or $3 a week, you could buy enough groceries for feed everybody with that much.
Spanish moss was disappearing for a while, but I'd
It-
never know it looking around your
completely-
yard.
No,
It
we don't
completely
have near
died.
the moss we used to have, George.
Really?
Oh God, you could.
Oh, it's beautiful.
You could climb a tree like that there and get maybe $1.50, $2
well,
worth of moss.
several years ago, the moss started disappearing out of the trees, and then the oak trees started dying.
Yeah.
So there must have been a disease of some kind that got into, because the moss is a parasite.
No,
And-
it's an air plant, and moss is an
Yeah,
air plant.
yeah.
Because it'll go
Yeah, I
on a
know
barbed wire
that.
fence.
Yeah, but
Mistletoe.
it died out of the trees, and then the oak trees started dying. We lost a lot of oaks down here.
But this kept us going during the Depression days. One thing about the Depression I want to mention. In those days when people in cities were starving to death and having such a hard time, it was tough if you lived in the city. But out here, we didn't know they had a depression on.
Oh yeah,
Because we
did.
had food, we raised our own food, we didn't have fancy clothes, but we lived good. At least what I remember of it.
It was
you know.
pretty rough, Wallace. You were kind of little yet, but
No.
it was pretty rough.
Depression, what, I was
Yeah.
34? I was 14 years
No,
old.
1929 it started.
It started? I thought the bank crash was in the 30s.
29.
I think Roosevelt closed the banks in 33.
32,
But the
33.
Depression actually started, most people dated
About
from
28,
Black
29.
Friday in October
Yeah,
of
that
29.
French president
Right.
got us in that depression.
The French president?
Yeah, we had 4 of them. Hubert Hoover. Then we had,
I think I'm about to hear a Lafitte joke. Go ahead.
and then we had Woodrow Wilson, got us in World War II.
World War I.
One, right. Then Theodore Roosevelt got us in the Spanish War in Spanish. And our last one, Harry Trahan. No, we don't want no more Cooney president.
You sound like a tour boat operator, because I heard some of the stories the tour boat was telling when it passed by.
Yeah, but when I
That's
tell
true.
it, it's a story. When they tell it, it's the truth.
You mean to say that what the tour boat
No.
tells you about Lafitte is not accurate?
50% of it isn't.
No.
I
Especially
mean,
with the
there weren't
snakes.
snake farms here, and
No.
that's where
No.
there are snakes in South
The
Louisiana.
only snake farm I know of was around Laplace, and it was a clip joint. Yeah, it
I
was.
remember that.
I know the one you're talking about. You're right.
Joint. And that's the only snake farm I know of.
Yeah, but they were talking about the cisterns and that.
Well, we did have cisterns,
That was our
And-
water supply.
yeah, but that was a long time ago because we've had
1952.
city water around 52 or 53. Warren Laval, Mr. Pavalura, and
My husband.
Eddie Arnold,
yeah, Eddie was
Johnny
one of-
Dufresne.
Yeah, and that's when we got the water down here,
So
and gas too.
if you take the tour boat to Lafitte, take a big bag of salt with you for the stories they tell you. Is that
Right.
right?
They needed.
We'd run out of water sometimes, dry spells, they'd run out of water. And they would barge water down here for people to get.
You know,
To cook and drink.
something that we mentioned a little while ago that I don't know that we talked about when the camera was rolling or not, was about the shipbuilding, and that there were some shipyards down here.
Well, we called them shipyards. They didn't build any ships, but a
Oh.
lot of big trawl boats and repaired boats. So Mr. Tony Capel was the biggest up in this area. And
And Emile Dufresne.
Emile Dufresne.
Yeah.
He's the
around
one that
my-
made that
around my neighborhood.
yeah.
Yeah.
skiff boats that he
Well,
made.
Bill was more of a builder than he didn't have too much of a repair business.
Yeah.
But Mr. Tony built them and repaired them. Had 3 sets of waves. They'd pull the boat up and scrape the barnacles off and repaint them and all.
Well, there's still people around who can build pirogues the way they used to be built.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're not too awfully many, but you mean the log pirogues?
Right.
I could do it.
There
You
was
can do it?
I helped build mine. I still build pirogue paddles and things.
There was an old saying years ago that Tony Capel built the world. Because he built the
Yeah.
boat and the name of it was the world.
Oh, I
And they used to
see.
say, Mr. Tony built the world.
He's quite a
he was
boat builder.
really
He was
a
really a-
great carpenter. And in those days, they built the round bottom boats. And that man could use calipers and dividers and everything else, and he never went to school a day in his life. And he was self-taught. He was a good man.
You were talking too about some of the teachers down here, and you were talking about some people that we didn't mention we were talking about earlier. I don't remember them now, but you know.
I mean, like Miss Robert, who's was the aunt to Dick White and the sister of Miss Lily White Rupel.
Okay.
And Miss Lily White Rupel was the principal of the Gretna Elementary. She put on the first parades in Gretna.
Yeah, when we did
Little
our
school
program on
things.
Gretna, we were talking
In
about
fact,
that.
one year, my brother and I went up there and we helped making the little floats for the Gretna parade. And she was a great educator, Miss Rupel was.
Yeah.
What about Isidore Fisher? That's who the school is named for. He
Yeah.
was a school board member, wasn't he?
Isidore, I think he was. That was Jules Fisher's brother, wasn't it? Now,
yeah.
I knew from Jules Fisher down, but I'm not too familiar with Isidore.
Isidore was with the school board.
We were
Because
trying.
that's who we had to go
That was
see.
back in the 20s.
My mother and them had to go.
Yeah.
A little group from here went into the school board, and I think that's who
But
they talked
Isidore-
to get roasts on school.
Yeah, but I think Isidore was before your time.
Yeah, yeah. Because,
Yeah.
like I say, I
He was before
remember
mine.
I remember Jules Fisher was a state senator.
Yeah.
That's the
And
one I
then
remember.
his brother was Joe Fisher, and then you have one, Elias
Elias
Fisher.
Fisher.
We were trying to do a
And Carl
program on
Fisher.
the people
I
that
didn't know.
schools were named for, and Isidore
related.
Fisher was somebody we had trouble locating information on.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, he
That
was the original of the Fisher clan, and
And they all lived down Lafitte.
Yeah.
Now, you were talking about dances when we were stopped a moment ago, too, and they sounded like a lot more fun than what I was hearing earlier. You want to tell me about those?
My goodness.
See, you don't
Yes,
want to
I
tell
was a
no
dancer.
secrets now.
Yeah, no, but they had dances down here. And like Wallace was telling about, the mothers went with their young daughters. Some of them didn't. If they were
Boy,
older,
well,
I didn't have anyone went with
alcohol.
me. But they take the little children, you know, and they'd sit around. But they had big dances and they had fights and just everything went on.
Oh, right. That sounds more like what I
They had killing in the
expected.
dance.
Oh, no, not that I remember they
Like
didn't.
that,
But they
Mrs.
had,
Zalt, didn't
Yeah,
William got killed?
across the road from Frankie's.
well, that was in later years, but I'm
Like
talking about
Fabiana
in the
Boyd?
early 30s.
Fabiana
In
Boyd
the
got
30s.
killed
Yeah.
by
We would,
memorize.
it was a shell road. We had to usually walk if somebody didn't have a car. I have went by car to a dance, but had to walk back about 5 miles to get back home again. But we had a lot of fun.
Now Lillian's
They were
place
nice
at Lafitte
dances.
they had a great dance hall.
That was a
Lillian
big,
and, she was married to Bootsy Hooper,
Yeah.
and
That-
good bands every Saturday night.
What kind of music?
The main bands, two bands that I remember, I think that one was, I'm not sure whether it was Kid Thomas. It was a
well,
colored band.
you're way ahead.
Kid
You're
Thomas is
way up ahead of me, fella. I'm way back in
And-
the 20s.
And
in the early
they
30s.
They had a
Yeah.
good colored band, about a 5-piece band.
We had.
And then you had the Osceola boys that played
They
down
were,
there.
well, we didn't have name bands. We had somebody that played the fiddle, and played maybe played 2 or 3 violins. They had a guitar, they had the drums, and maybe somebody blew a horn. But if that was a local band,
And
Yeah.
more nearly what they
and they
would call
would
Cajun.
they would
Cajun
really
music.
have
They used
Cajun
that a
music.
lot at
Yeah.
house
And then you
warming.
wild young kids came along with your jazz with
And
Kid
then,
Thomas.
oh well,
and
we
all that.
played, but
I
we
don't- I
they
don't
played
think it
good
was
music.
Kid Thomas, but
And
it was
then
a band, about 5.
then they started. One of them lives down here. I can't say his name. His dad ran a mailboat to Grand Isle.
Danton.
But Danton.
The Dantons had a band.
He was in a band. They were from Gretna, and I
They're
think
the
there
ones
was
ran
4
to
or 5
Chicago.
of them, and they worked, and then they played on weekends. But they really had a good
And the
band.
Osceola boys had a
And
band
then
that
they
played down
come down.
there.
But he's talking about these name bands. That was after my time of going.
No, I'm not sure.
But
it was,
anyway, we had
But it was
nice
a band from
dances,
New
and
Orleans,
the
and it was
boys
good.
from Lafitte would come to a dance up in the upper part of Barataria, up around where I live, and they'd have a fight every time they'd mix.
if they
You
had
couldn't
any
get in that other one's backyard. They'd have fun to get a
Any
couple.
disagreements during the week, they'd say, well, we'll settle it at the dance. Because, see, they had an audience.
We had a lot of fun.
I understand that, you people drove the Codaville people crazy down here. You were telling me about that,
And
too.
this young couple came down here. This was 4 or 5 years ago. And I told them the first night I went, I said, there's 2 things going to make me quit. If I can't smoke, and if you give me homework, I'm not coming. So I got by with both of them. But this girl, she taught French, and a lot of people like my wife and all were French, but a lot of their French was forgotten. And in fact, I did better than Mickey in the French class. But it was great, and they showed us pictures and all of their parts of the country and all, and I really enjoyed it. But it was a different brand of French than what we speak. They explained that the French that we speak here
They go
is
about
200 years ago. That's what the French was in France, and this French that we have here didn't progress, whereas the French. And then, too, you have so many different dialects in France, the Parisian and all. I met this boy on this Calypso, Jacques Cousteau's boat, and I tried to talk to him in English, and he didn't speak English, so I tried my French out on him, and had the same dialect that we have. He was from Nice, France, which is in southern France, and we got on great. I'd ask him the questions, he'd tell me, and I'd translate it for Alan and little Timmy Brown, you know, and even some reporter came there, and he couldn't speak French, and I did a little translation for him. Of course, I had a little problems too, but I did well enough that you knew what the heck we were
When those
talking
people went back to France, they were all talking with Cajun accents?
The two teachers, they wouldn't have Cajun accents, but we had them saying things like we were saying.
Leona and I was over in Europe several years ago, and she was our translator. Well, she was talking, the little French guys and the little girl says, Leona told her that we were from Louisiana. She said, "Oh, Cajun!" She knew all about the Cajuns.
Well, my brother served in France during World War II, and he was sort of like an interpreter for his outfit.
Let's look at some of these pictures we were mentioning earlier. I think
breeze is coming up.
Wallace's, so
I think all the loose ones are mine, John.
All right, I'm going to show you the picture. You tell me about it, and if he's lying, I want you all to straighten.
Oh, they wouldn't know the difference.
I wouldn't know the difference.
What's this beautiful tree right
Now
here?
that is Grand-Père. That's the big oak tree that's now nothing but a stump in Rosethorn Park. It was registered by the
Yeah,
ladies,
I remember that.
the ladies that started the first pirogue race, the Barataria Mothers Club. They registered it in the history of the oaks. At that time, it was the 4th largest oak in the state, which later had moved up to first place because some of the other ones
That was a
died.
Rosethorn Park.
Rosethorn Park, and that was called Grand-Père. Now that is Miss Lily White Rupel, Miss Robert's sister.
I remember her.
And on the back of that picture it says this is another one of Lily's projects. She's got a billy goat there. She collected things. She was one of the biggest antique collectors in the world.
All right.
Now that's a picture of my pirogue. I think that's my brother standing it up there. It was 18 feet long, 15 inches wide, and 6 inches deep.
This is the one in the
That's the one
1938 race?
I helped built most
That's the
of
one
it.
that he won the
Yeah, I was
pirogue race?
in the race in 1938. Now that is the original Fleming Fisher School that later become the high school, and that's where is that the picture of the War Memorial there? That's where they used to have the War Memorial. No,
I can't
The one on
tell.
top.
I can't. Wait.
That used to be Fisher School.
Right here.
Later was the band.
Yeah.
They made the band room out.
That was a 2-room,
Yeah.
2-school.
You know who taught the first school down here on this bar? Dr. Winnie.
When? Yeah.
Dr. Winnie Fleming.
Dr. Douglas's sister.
Yeah, the oldest Fleming girl.
Yeah.
She went across the bar and they took her in a boat over there, and I don't know how many students she had, but it was the first school they
My
had.
little
down
sister taught it with Miss Ackerman.
Oh, that was many years.
1947.
Yeah, this was in the 1900s,
They had
I
Miss
would
Thorne.
imagine.
Margaret Thorne taught too.
And
yeah.
Mrs.
I
Tomlin.
got
Miss
2
Tomlin.
copies of the same one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
still the same.
Yeah.
What's that?
That's the same pirogue, my brother.
This is, I think, the memorial
Yeah,
you're
that's the
talking about.
memorial that sat right there at next to that Fisher School. They put that up during the war with the names of all the boys that
I don't remember that. I was gone
served.
from the bio then.
This were the boys who served?
served from the Lafitte to the Crown Point area.
Okay.
Upside down.
No,
No,
it
it's
isn't.
not.
Huh? Oh, I see a reflection.
That's the
there.
pirogue.
That's my pirogue.
That's the
That
one he
was
won the
taken right
race
here
in.
in the bayou.
That's the one who won the race in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't win that race. That, oh, that's the
That's the
picture of redfish
fish.
on my uncle's boat. He had a trawl boat, and they were coming back from a fishing trip, and that's the redfish hanging there.
Now this looks like a good catch of fish right here.
That is ducks, wild ducks.
Oh, it's ducks?
And you know, if you notice
I'm not
that,
wearing my glasses because I'm vain.
you notice
No
that,
scales
you
on
notice that picture is a sailboat. You notice the sail and the mast and the sail behind those people?
Mm-hmm.
That was taken back in the sailboat days.
I'm going to have to look up some pictures.
Is this another
That's
picture of
the-
you and your pirogue?
That's the picture of me, and I've got my number on it. I was much younger then.
According to the number, you came in 12th, not first.
No, that was the number I was in. That was the number that I was entered in my. They gave you a number for the race. I think I came out 15th.
All right, what's this?
Now that is our senior class at the old Gretna High School. My little sister and all the whole bunch of Gretna. And that's me with the suit. The only time I ever wore a suit, I believe, in my life.
I've got one of those. Mine's bigger than that.
All right, let's look at this one.
Now
Up that side.
That's Jefferson Parish school band made up of all high school students, Kenna, Metairie, Jefferson, West Wego, and Gretna. I think
That looks like Gretna High.
Sidney Hogetz was band director then.
This is a great picture. I love this one.
Now that is the Rose on the steps of the Rose Thorn School. That's Santa Claus,
Mr.
who
Phil
came
Burrs
every
right here.
year.
Oh, tell me about Santa Claus. You were telling me about that
He was
before.
quite a kid.
He was actually a judge in referee in bankruptcy, and he had this lodge. He came down here, and it was his wife that sponsored the pirogue race at the club. Now
She's one of the members of it.
he provided every kid with a 50-cent toy. The school teacher did the shopping, and when we arranged our Christmas party so that he could make each one, and everybody, and then all the mothers and everybody came, got candy.
He went to every school.
Now all
Let's
these
go to
kids that you're seeing there, their grandparents and everything else, half of them are dead, and some of them I don't even remember.
He had his own beard. He had a beard.
It's the most
And he was a
perfect
true Santa Claus.
Short and fat,
A true
a
Santa
natural
Claus.
white beard.
Do you remember him? You don't.
At times, I mean, for the Christmas party, they used to go to different business places, and they would give a little donation to help him with the toys. Because I know my
Just he
husband.
gave, that
Well,
was
you see,
Out of his
his-
own pocket.
out of his
We
own
didn't
The
know
pocket.
rest
that
was out of his own
because
pocket.
we knew it was Santa Claus.
Yeah.
We didn't
But
know parents.
he was
bought
quite a man. He was
No, they used to come to
Who's
the
this
store
young, good-looking
Yeah,
guy?
I
and
heard
get
that.
donations. Yes.
That is me in a band, my first band uniform.
You care to say the year?
35,
remember-
I believe. 35 or 36.
You got a good memory.
Huh?
These are some those are from your own collection. These were professionally taken, but they're so beautiful. We wanted to include them in, and we've been talking about the pirogue race.
Yeah, that race had
That's
just-
when it was a real pirogue race.
Yeah, that's when it started down around the tavern, just the side of the tavern at Mr. Cameron's store, and ended at Mr. Felix's store, Fleming Canal store. And that was a 4-mile course.
4 miles of
Straight.
paddling.
4 miles.
And the park there by the Fleming where it ended would be just packed.
Well, they got pictures of it there. Now
And
that's
Mr. Etienne.
Mr. Etienne Biot.
Yeah.
He was one of the biggest pirogue makers in this.
I have a book of him building pirogue from the beginning to the end.
Oh, that's got to be
And
fascinating to watch.
he
the
paddled
process.
in it just about every year. His son won it for years and years. Now that is
We might find us in there.
that was what one of the ceremonies. I think that was at
That's
Fleming
Mrs.
Canal.
Etienne. That's Mr.
Yeah.
Etienne's wife right there.
Now the man with the
That
with
looks
the-
like Leo.
It is.
Big Leo.
Yeah.
yeah, that is Leo. And there's Judge Stillburgess in there too, and the women with all the hats, big brimmed hats. Of
I
the
might
women
even
that
be in there.
Sponsored it.
I'd love to take my time. Oh, look
Now
at that.
that's the old island,
Now that's
the first race. I'm the second
Now
from
this
the
is the
left on the
point.
bottom.
Right over
this
here.
is the point.
I'm the second from
This
the
is
left.
the
Left.
Rose
And
Thorn.
My little sister's in that too.
What's this picture here? Tell me about this one.
That's the first race. People waiting for the race to come in, and that's Miss Jones' home right in the background. Miss Margaret Thorne's inherited that, and it was the most gorgeous place, and the picnic grounds and all. But it's no more. It's just an island now.
What happened to the house?
The house was wrecked by a tornado, and they later moved the other. They had some other smaller houses they moved them on I-1 road.
What kind of prizes did they give for the pirogue race?
Well, this was years later. They, all the different places, business places and everything donated things. You could win a shotgun, you could win. The year I won, I come out 15th. I had a sack of Irish potatoes, 50-pound sack of Irish potatoes, a case of lubricating oil, some machine oil, a quart of Old Mr. Boston whiskey, case of Falstaff beer, and God knows what else. I can't even remember.
You were 15th? What did the winner get?
A box of Baby Ruth candies. The winner's got $200.
Oh, and that was big money back
those
then.
days was a lot of money,
Yes,
and a
indeed.
trophy. But you got more stuff than you could carry.
You could live for a year just on what you won by placing
yeah.
15th.
And that's Mr. Lawrence Capel. He's the son of Tony Capel. I told you was a boat builder, and he's building a pirogue there. Now whether he built it or just standing there by it. Now that was the first 3 contestants of winning. The man on that side was Mr. Maturambio. He won the first race. The next one was Mr. H.N.B.O. He was second.
And then
Andre B.O. was on the other side.
Yes, Andrew.
Now that house, that camp boat and that house back over there is where Evelyn lived when she was a little girl.
I see.
That's where her parents lived. Now that's...
I can't pick that up.
I can't either. Young man, you do that.
All right, what's this one?
That's Mr. Maturambio. Now that's the winner of
Look
the
at
race.
the lilies.
Now in the background, that's on the opposite side, you got it covered with that paper, is where that Fleming Cemetery is. You can barely see the graves in there. That big tree that's in that picture is now washed away into the bayou.
No, not quite.
That one is down there. There's another one.
Isn't the hill right here?
Yeah.
Well, that's still there. It's still washed out. It's still there.
No.
There's one there, but I don't.
This is before they dredged the intercoastal waterway.
Oh, yeah.
You had all those lilies.
Years. Well, we still
this
get
is way
lilies here
back,
too.
yeah.
Do you?
Oh yeah.
You did 16 years ago when I was here, I
Yeah,
remember.
you get
Yeah,
lilies
but
here now?
they've got pretty well rid of. Gosh, I've seen
Not
where we
like
can
they
walk
used
across
to.
the bayou on them.
Now I don't know that gentleman,
Let me see.
unless it could be the old captains they call, but I wouldn't swear to it. And I don't know who the paddler
He
is.
looks like a Coulon.
I was just going to say, that his face is familiar there.
Now that is a picture of the.
This is Miss Thelbarger.
That's Miss Thilbarger, and starting from the end is Andrick Munch, Maturambio, the winner, and the pirogue contestants. Now all the women with the big hats, that's Miss Freed over on this other side, and then Miss Sharp sticking her head through.
Yeah.
Miss Margaret right in the background.
Now,
My mother's, you can just see her
They're all
forehead
gone.
behind Miss
Everyone
Thilbarger. And then they had Miss Davison
Where's
and Miss Reynolds. I think
where's
that was-
Margaret?
Margaret, you barely can see her right through where your finger was there.
Right here, isn't that it?
You barely can see her. Now these are the men that started the races after.
Oh, look at
Hugh
my husband
Wilkinson,
right there.
Mr. Favalora and all of them. Urban Wilkinson and different attorneys.
They're
and
the one that
people
took it over
on
when they got too
yachts.
big.
Now that's some more of Mr. Wilkinson and the different ones that put the pirogue races together. That's some
Oh, my
of the
goodness.
contestants before. Now this man with the black cap, that boy, is Adam B.O. He's the one that won it so many times. And
He was a champion pirogue
for
paddler.
years. Yeah, that's him there.
And Herbert Capel was too.
After Adam.
After
Yeah.
Adam, yeah.
Yeah, Herbert was. He's in there.
That's
Adam. After taken right after the race. That's Adam too. I think that guy that presenting the trophy is Arthur Van Pelt. He used to be a columnist, sports writer for Times-Picayune. And that's Adam and his daddy. And that old man paddled that race every year it was ever in it. He never did actually win it, but he was always up. He beat the hell out of me.
Oh.
And that's down there at the beginning, down by Mr. Cameron's.
That's when the yacht club took it over.
That's when they had hundreds, not hundreds, but
You Wilkerson had it when they left cameras. It's when they went to the
they
tavern
must
that
have
they
had 70,
it.
80 contestants at the time. That's the game down there. No, I think that's it. That's at your. No, that's at the beginning of the
That's
race. 'cause
Mr.
they all
Camel's
lined up.
place.
Yeah,
That's at Cameras.
Yeah,
That's
that's
at
at
Mr.
Mr.
Camel's,
Camel's. That's you. I think that's you Wilkerson's boat.
Yeah.
That was taken where the race ended. That's the Fleming Park in the background. The most gorgeous trees and all that. And I think that's Albert's Fleming's home in the
This
background.
is where I
there.
grew up, and that happened. You can't see just a little bit of it.
And those pirogues there and the next page, those are the original dugouts, the working model pirogues. Now, that's Herbert Capel on the left, and that's Benoit Houtin in
The middle.
middle, and Adam on the right. Now you can see that pirogue that Benoit is in the middle. See how perfect that pirogue is? That man built pirogues. He was really a good.
What do you mean working pirogues?
The kind they trapped in and
As opposed to something built especially for the race?
later they started making the racing models, long and narrow and sleek. But those were called racing models. Now that's Hugh Wilkerson and Adam and all that one of the awards.
My goodness, this is
There's
bringing
Mr.
back.
Camel's.
Yeah, that's down at Mr. Cameron's
This
store.
is bringing
Now,
back
I
memories.
want you to notice, you see he's making his stroke. I think that's the one, and you can see the water flying up.
Right
The guy
here.
had a stroke, man, that throwed a wake like a motorboat. Nobody could paddle near him. I think that's the 1938 bunch.
That must be the start.
No, those are old model pirogues. It's on the back. Yeah, that is 38.
Yep, you're right.
That's 38. That's the year I was in it. Now that's background is the Fleming Fleming Park, you know.
This is where I lived. There's where I lived over there. And this is the old plantation home back in here. Some of those oak trees have died.
Yeah, and I think that those are all taken about the same.
They're all
place.
taken down the park.
It's just different
Probably if I
races.
looked there, I could see myself.
Now one of those is for the Maurice Gubler, and I think one is for the Edwin, and Hugh Wilkerson, and I don't know who the.
This is Father Edwin.
Yeah.
Maurice is not in there.
He's not there.
Oh,
No. It's two guests.
two guests.
Yes. That's in front of the store.
Yeah, that's at
That's
the
in front of
ending
your
of the
store?
race. At the ending of the race.
And you're out of the picture because you're 15th.
I was probably bailing mine out because I sunk. Now that is Evelyn's grandfather standing on his head in a pirogue.
He
Standing
sure
on his
is.
head?
Now, that
Yes.
man,
I'd
he
be
must
good
have
to
been
sit in a
about,
pirogue.
he must have been about 65 or 70 years old then, hi Evelyn. One of the sweetest old
He's
gentlemen you
Carrie's
ever met.
pirogue, huh?
Somebody probably bought him a beer. He was a sweet old fella. Now that is Hugh Wilkerson's boat that they used to
This is taken right there at the Flemings. This is
lead the
park
parade and
over here.
everything.
This is the end of the.
Yeah.
That's it.
Now that's right after the starting of the race. That's how they were really digging out.
Yeah. Oh, that was
That's
an
Adam
exciting
McCain. You
day.
see in later years, you can see how much he's aged here from the first pictures. 'Cause I think he won it
That
something
drew a
like
lot of
6 or
people
7
from
years
town.
in a row.
Mm.
And that's one of the presenting ceremonies.
Isn't that Bill DeFriend standing up?
That's Robert Petrie.
Can't see
No,
from here.
Robert Beecher was a young kid then. Man.
I guess he was, yeah. I don't know, but that sure looks like
It looks
Robert.
like Robert, but Robert was too
I
young.
know Robert's about your age, isn't he?
Yeah,
That's
Well,
a
he's still a
Plymouth
young
dog.
kid then.
Yeah.
compared to them
That's a
100-year-old.
good. That's a good picture. Of the
Yeah, that's
look how beautiful the trees were over there.
That's
They're
right
not like
across
that.
from the Fleming Canal
Yeah.
store, the Fleming Park in the background. Now that's a good picture.
Oh,
of the
that's a
park and all
beautiful
that.
picture. Look at the people.
That shows
I live
these
right here.
paddlers crossing
Yeah.
the finishing line.
Drew a lot of
You
people
notice the
down here.
difference in the pirogues then. They begin to get longer and leaner.
They opened up the pasture down there to park cars
That's
in.
Adam again. That's him and his wife.
He's getting the victory kiss.
That's one of the beginnings of the race. That's down at Mr. Cameron's. You notice
Look at that,
how much
isn't that
longer the
pretty?
pirogues are getting? Now that's up by Fleming Canal store.
Look
Now
at
you
the
can
people.
see the
that's
crowds
down.
on the bank of the bayou,
And they
for
were
4 miles
terrified.
it was like that. That's how much attention that race used to attract. Now that is 3 of the old champions. That's Herbert Capel and Adam Beal
Adam and Paul.
Ibasov, I think.
Paul Ibazava.
Yeah. Now you see, you notice there the fronts of the pirogues are covered. That's to keep the water from swamping them.
They were learning.
Well, it's hardly fair to keep the water out. You had to bail.
Yeah, well, I didn't have enough sense to do that. And that's at the end of the race. I don't know some of those boats, but I'd be willing to bet that speedboat in the foreground was built by Mr. Tony Capel. It's just like now, you can go down the bayou and you could tell any boat that Bill Dufresne made. It's just distinct from any of the rest. Now, Miss Pavlura could tell you about that picture.
Oh, that's on my porch.
That's your porch.
Oh, yes. Look at Henry Dupre right
Yeah.
here.
Henry
Oh.
Dupre, you remember used to be with
Yeah.
WWL?
Sure.
That's him. He
Uncle
used to
Henry, he started the Toys for
Yes,
Tots.
yes,
yes,
program.
sure did.
He
He
used
was
to
quite
come
a
down
man.
here for the pirogue
Quite a
race every
person.
year and broadcast.
Oh, I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, it's on your porch.
That's on Miss Pavlura's porch.
They fed about 300 or 400 people that day.
Ooh.
And then anything was left over, Henry would say, honey, this is all yours. Do what you want. And I'd call all the neighbors, bring their pots and pans, and I used to give it all away.
Who did all the cooking?
Oh, they did.
Oh.
They did.
Now that's the
Felix
flagging-
Tranchina, my husband's cousin, did all the cooking.
That's flagging in Adam, one of the winners.
Yeah.
Now that's Herbert, Adam, Herbert, Eva Zob, and Charlie Millady.
Yeah.
Herbert was killed in the war, wasn't he?
No, Herbert's still living.
Is it Herbert?
Oh yeah, Herbert's
Albert-
still living.
Albert, yeah.
Lawrence was killed in the war.
Herbert was champion for years and
Yeah.
years too. So was Eva Zob.
He scribbled on them too,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, Herbert was shot up then.
Yeah.
He was in
Yeah.
the paratroopers during World War II,
Yeah.
and he got wounded bad. But he came back and won that race for years.
That wasn't me either.
No, that wasn't you.
I don't know. From here, I can't tell.
can't
who that was.
It's the wrong side.
That's Adam and Hugh
Isn't
Wilson.
that Vanderberg?
Vanderberg.
Vanderberg?
Vanderbilt?
Vanderberg, huh? Vanderbrook?
Vanderbrook. Vanderbrook.
We'll get it later.
Vanderbrook.
Vanderbilt. Pages.
Oh, his wife will go through that.
That's Hugh Wilson,
That's Adam's
Adam
wife
and his
right there.
wife.
Yes.
And I couldn't
I
swear
know
who
those
the other
faces,
men
but
are.
I can't
This
put
is
his
the man
name to
with the Tulane shirts. Did you remember? What was his name?
This one is, yeah.
Owned the Tulane
Yeah.
Shirt Manufacturing Company.
Harry Bunk.
Harry
Harry
Bunk.
Bunk, yeah.
I couldn't think
Harry
of it.
Bunk.
I never could
I
think
knew
of
his
it.
face, but I couldn't.
Now, this picture doesn't have anything to do with pirogue racing, but it has a lot to do with
But-
one of
Oh,
the
yes,
industries
yes.
down here.
She made all the palmetto hats that the Barataria Women's Club wore. The big brim palmetto hats,
Oh,
she made them.
beautiful.
Now this
hats.
lady went in the woods and cut the palmetto buds and cured them, and she made those baskets, she made the handbags, and she made hats.
And bread trays.
She could make anything
Everything-
with that
anything
stuff.
out of
And
palmetto.
beautiful work.
What's her name?
And
And fans. She was
Selena Dada.
She was married to Gustav Jord, one of the survivors of the Chenier storm, and they lived right up the road here, about 300 or 400 feet. And I knew her all my life until she died.
Now, what was the one across the bar that made the
Victoria was her niece.
Victoria.
Victoria, she was a Dada, but she married Henry Vinet. And then one of our other sisters used to be our neighbor here that was married to Altamont Grove. And but those were real Indian people. So they when they had a death in the family, they were very solemn. They didn't carry on and cry. Huh?
You better get his, we can hear you.
And they were really, and it was her nephew that helped me build my P-room. He was my manager. But that was an experience. I was always into everything if it happened. I had to be part of it. I was in the band when I went to school and track meet. I guess I was one of the first track stars from Lafitte. Didn't win, but I was in it.
Well, as the boat goes by in the background telling more lies,
yeah,
what's going to happen to Lafitte?
Just get bigger.
Can't grow. It can get a little closer together, but it can't spread out too much because there's too much swamp. And when you get to the end of Lafitte, you either get on a boat and go, or you turn around and come back. Because it's just so much land here.
Don't go there and scare her.
And by then, I'll either be dead or I'll go find me another country place to live in.
Your Lafitte will outlive you.
I've been eyeing Bayou Gosh. It's still like this place used to be.
You know, when I first started teaching years ago, it was over 20 years ago, I had a student at West Jefferson High School who was a very intelligent young girl. And I asked her what she wanted to do when she graduated from high school. And she told me she wanted to come back to Lafitte to live. And she wrote a paper for me that's more than 20 years ago, and I've never forgotten it. I forget what the subject of the paper was, but she said she wanted to come back to Lafitte, sit on the edge of the bayou, fish, raise a family, and watch life goes by. Having a few years on me now, I think that's a pretty good way to live.
This is the greatest place in the world to live, and I've been all over the world, from Shanghai, China, all over. And there's nothing like this place. There's nothing like the people.
That's right.
This lady.
Thank you for being with us. Join us again for Jefferson Genesis. Next time, we may be telling the story of your little bit of home here in Jefferson Parish.